5 days after Cyclone Idai tore through parts of southern Africa, the full extent of the devastation is slowly becoming clear. More than 1.5 million people have been affected. Agencies are desperately searching for the missing, and they're getting satellite images from NASA to help them. Mozambique was the first to get hit. More than 80 people are confirmed dead, with over 200 missing. But the president says more than 1,000 people may have been killed. At least 98 people are dead in neighbouring Zimbabwe, with 217 missing there. The cyclone destroyed roadways, and that's making it hard to deliver aid. And in Malawi, officials fear at least 56 people were killed and more than 500 others injured. All three countries have declared national emergencies. Malcolm Webb's joining us from one of the hardest hit areas in central Mozambique. Malcolm, bring us up to date with what's been happening there.
Well, here it began with ferocious winds and days of torrential rains. It's still raining on and off now. That caused an enormous amount of damage. Rivers swelled, broke their banks, washing away bridges, houses, schools, hospitals, farms. You can see a building here that had a tree land on its roof. And on this side, all the way down this road, several trees came down, taking out the power lines. So there's no electricity and no running water in most of the affected areas, and almost no communications as well, which is why it's taken so many days for the picture to slowly come together, as you said. And the World Food Programme announced a short while ago that it's a major humanitarian crisis that they said is only being revealed hour by hour. They said that those satellite images that you mentioned indicate that there were 1.7 million people in the path of the cyclone in Mozambique, and that nearly 1 million have been affected in Malawi as well.
Malcolm, give us some idea, if you can, of the kind of rescue efforts that are going on there at the moment.
Well, here on this side of the country, it's been very difficult for any rescue operations to mobilise at all. This town, ESPUNGABERA, is connected to the rest of the country by only 2 roads. And the bridge on one of them was washed away, the other one, the road, also washed away. So no help by road has arrived here, and no help by air. But hundreds of people in this district have had their houses destroyed. Many of them are sheltering within schools in the town. And then in the other parts of the district that are now being cut off, the officials don't even know how many people are in need, because there's no way of communicating with them.
And Malcolm, we were mentioning before that there is a warning that there may be rain on the way. Are people concerned about that, and is there anything they can do if it does come?
Well, it's raining a little bit right now, but yeah, there is very little people can do. They were earlier told in some places to evacuate, or others to stay indoors. Evacuation is something that would be well beyond the means of very many of the people here anyway. Of course, live in basic conditions and wouldn't afford the transport or don't own cars. But now that roads, bridges and rivers have been washed away, people don't really have the option of moving around at all. It's also important to understand that most people in Mozambique live in quite simple structures made of bricks, made of earth, stuck together with mud, iron sheets on the roof. There are millions of people living in these conditions. And of course, lots of rain and then strong winds. These kind of structures can very easily be destroyed. So there's not much people can do to prepare other than hope for the best. Those that have already been affected, as I said, have taken shelter wherever they can find it, in schools and other public buildings.
Malcolm, thanks very much. Well, FAHMIDA Miller is in BEIRA, one of the areas in Mozambique which has been feeling the brunt of the storm.
The situation here appears to be becoming increasingly difficult. Just behind us, as you can see, power lines are down in this particular street, but that is the picture across the city. There's also no communication. We're using a satellite phone to communicate, but people here really don't have that luxury, and that's what's adding to some of the difficulties that people here are facing. So far, the government has said that 68 people were killed during that cyclone in the days after, but it's expected that figure will rise because there's no communication. People aren't able to call for help or determine where missing people are, or just also the extent of the devastation. And aid agencies says that's just one of the biggest challenges, apart from accessing areas, especially rural areas and low-lying areas where floodwaters are continuing to rise. Apart from having difficulty in accessing those areas, they simply can't determine just how bad the devastation is. Aid agencies that have been able to fly overhead say that the floodwaters are very high, that entire villages have been swept away. Now here in BEIRA, where the central hospital is that services the city of 500,000 people. The roof of that hospital was torn away during that cyclone, and that hospital also is running out of medicine. Now, the government is holding a meeting in BEIRA at some point during the course of the day to work out what to do. But people here are also disappointed. They were told to evacuate before the cyclone, but the question for them was, where do we go? And they have a number of grievances with the government and just how it's dealing with this disaster so far and what happens next, given the scale of devastation.